Okay, we have just come out of our executive session. We are resuming the public session. And as mentioned earlier, the board will study 2 monitoring reports this morning. Board End 1.3, every student will be taught using evidence-based instructional materials that reflect the global diversity of the world in which students live. And Board End 2.1, educators will receive high-quality professional development and engage in planning that directly improves their impact on their students. Since we have the same presenting staff for each monitoring report, we'll segue directly from one topic to the next, as guided by our presenters today. And as a reminder to the board and our listening public, the full monitoring reports are available for review in board docs. Previous reports and discussion on this topic can be viewed in our board docs and live stream archives. Before I hand this off to Ms. Nikothodis, Superintendent Dorland, is there anything you'd like to add?
I would just like to get us started. I think Ms. Nikothodis has put a lot of work into these monitoring reports. I'm looking forward to her having the time to share about the important work that she leads. So thank you.
Yes. Would it be better if I turn my camera off?
We were thinking you would share screen.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that way our board and our listening public can see the materials.
Give me a moment to pull the content up. Just set it up. But it would be showing up there if I was sharing, or?
Yeah. Go here. It's not sitting here.
No.
Let's see if I can.
I'm sorry, I don't know why it's not sharing.
Yeah. We're working on it. Kim's gonna join to share. Yeah, Kim's got it. Okay. In your front board doc, so we know it's yes, yeah, perfect. I think so.
They can't see it either. Wait, there it goes. Yep.
Okay, I think we got it. Can you guys see it now? Thank you for your patience. We appreciate that. Okay.
And they can hear me okay?
Yeah. All right. Okay. Let us know if you're having a hard time hearing Renee.
Just touch my screen to scroll.
Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, members of the board. Excited to share some of the work that we've been doing around curriculum with you over the past year. We've been very busy. So we've got some real bright spots to share with you, and also just kind of give you some updates around where we're at entering into this year. So we'll start with just a quick touch on how the work that we've been doing does align to the board's end statements around 1.3. The board ends here states every student will be taught using evidence-based instructional materials that reflect the global diversity of the world in which students live. And here in Jeffco, we interpret this to mean that instruction for all of our Jeffco students is grounded in high-quality instructional materials, as well as practices aligned to research and data. About a year ago, we were together talking about what was happening with curriculum. And so this will be a summary of the school year 23-24 and all the work that was done at that time. So things that we've been working on are continuing to implement illustrative math resources. We've got our third cohort this year, and so at the end of this school year, we will have all of our schools using a new math resource in Jeffco, so that's pretty exciting stuff, and we're seeing some really great gains from our students already and higher levels of engagement. We've also been working on draft implementation planning for core resources in science and secondary ELA from last year, and we started implementing those things this year. Continuing to work on implementation of intervention resources for math and literacy. And then we'll provide you some details around some things that are under review and refresh right now and over the next few years. All of this work around curriculum is really focused on creating a strong foundation for Tier 1 or core instruction in Jeffco. And this is anchored in what we call our ARC for instructional excellence, which you see here on the slide. This ARC really maps out the focus for our professional learning and our work around core resources over the course of the school year. Now, this is the ARC for this year. We had an ARC for last year as well, where we were implementing math resources. This year, we've really started to lean into the instructional practices that support the use of those resources. And I know we've talked about this before, but a resource isn't going to get you as far as you need to go. It is what we're talking about is it's the floor. It sets the floor. It does not set the ceiling, and it will not do everything that our students need for it to do. That is the job of our teachers, and that's who brings the art and the magic and student engagement into the classroom every day. But it is truly amazing for teachers to have a core resource that really sets that floor, norms us across our system about what grade level expectations and instruction should look like. And then our teachers are able to bring their own expertise to it, to really take it to higher levels of rigor, think about the students in front of them and what their data says about them and what their needs will be when engaging with those curricular resources, as well as plan for more rigorous instruction when it's needed. And so when we have this arc of learning mapped out, it really gives our leaders and our teachers in our building an idea of where we're headed over the course of the year and helps them to plan accordingly at the building level. So a couple of bright spots we're super proud about. I talked a little bit already about the illustrative math resource implementation. We now have K-12 new core resources for math in every school. Over the last few years, we've also implemented new resources, K-5 and some grade 6 for literacy in every school. This year, we are implementing new preschool curriculum, as well as science curriculum in 6th grade, half of our 6th grades, and chemistry classes. And also, I said yes, and new science materials. I'm not sure if I said science, it's not on my slide here, but we're also implementing in half of our 6th grade science classrooms a new science resource this year. So we're excited about all the work that's happening. And we're on track with all of these things that some of them were listed as areas in need of focused acceleration last year. And so I'll give you some updates about how we're on track with these things and where we're headed next. For secondary ELA core resources, we have 14 out of 25 middle grade schools that are currently involved in an ELA pilot of resources. We have all of our preschool classrooms that are currently implementing a pilot in preschool. We're hearing great things about that. We have all of our schools using intervention resources for literacy and math, which include OG, Lexia, Zern for math, and Map Accelerator. And then we've continued to invest and build out our instructional resources and the content available for our teachers through our district web pages and our landing pages. And I think you saw a few examples of that in the report. We gave you a couple of screenshots so you could really see how detailed these are and the great resources they provide for our teachers. Some of the challenges we're continuing to work through are around change management. We know that when you're learning something new and being asked to shift practices, it can create some anxiety and stress for teachers, and we've certainly seen that along the way throughout our curriculum implementation. I think we're getting better and better in thinking about what do our teachers need. We've intentionally set up structures this year so that we can stay close to the conversations with our teachers so that we can understand really what do they need, what supports are they finding helpful, and where do we need to make adjustments for our schools in order to more effectively manage the change that teachers are going through. Because we know it's a challenge, it's a lift, It does get easier once you get more familiar with your resource. The lift gets easier, but going into it, it can be a lot. So we've got committees set up centrally this year with what we call our instructional leaders, where we have a representative from every school that comes together once a month. And just recently I attended the secondary ELA instructional leaders group, and we invited all of the teachers that are piloting the new resources for ELA to this meeting, so they could just kind of share their stories. How is it going? You know, kind of warts and all. And I was kind of bracing for, you know, hearing a lot of challenges, but I was pleasantly surprised at how positive the reaction from our schools that are piloting these resources was. They were talking about it is so nice to have the resources there, because they are able to think about, how do I engage students? How do I create interest in this lesson coming up? How do I differentiate and provide strategies for students who are going to need greater access because they may not be working at grade level, or enrichment or extension of the learning? And because the materials are there, so they're not having to go out and search for it. They talked about how helpful it's been to be able to have all of their team using a new resource at the same time, so they can troubleshoot and support each other through those challenges. And at the end of the meeting, there was one teacher that's not yet has any new resources in their school building, and she asked us to stay on with her because she really wants to get in on this next year. So, you know, it's happening, it's getting more positive. We know it's been hard. We so value our teachers being honest with us and just sharing what's working and what's not, and we're going to continue to do that. We have visits to all of the pilot schools to meet with every teacher working with the resources throughout the month of November. So we'll be going to them to talk more about, how do you move this forward in other schools? What do you want your colleagues to know about how this is going? In January, we have a full day for a district-wide professional learning, and we'll be setting up a panel discussion with some of our pilot teachers and inviting other teachers across the district. Hey, if you're interested, come to this session. You can hear, you know, how it's going, what they love about it, what they hate about it, if you're interested. So we're really hoping to generate more interest, hopefully within the next couple of years, so that we have solidly K-8, pre-K, K-8 resources in all of our classrooms, because it really does set that level expectation around what grade level should be. So it really helps us to norm as a system if we have that across all of our classrooms. And when we don't, it makes it a lot harder to ensure that we've got that vertical articulation across grades and across schools, especially as students matriculate through the different levels. So we're very hopeful that we're moving in the right direction. But change management is an aspect that we're having to plan really intentionally around to make sure that we're providing the right supports. Another challenge that we've encountered is, now that we've had literacy resources in place for a few years at the elementary level, we've been able to capture some data for around student achievement and outcomes. And as we started to look at this through resource lens, you'll see here on this slide, this is our third grade CMAS reading, meets and exceeds. If you look closely here, you'll see it is by resource. If you go to the far right, you'll see the different resources that we have in Jeffco for ELA at the elementary level. So it starts with HMH cohort 1, so that was the first group of schools that started with HMH, then 2, and then the non-HMH schools. So you have that comparison about how they're performing, what their actual average CMAS score was. And then if you continue to move to the right, you see our schools that are using the resource EL and their average CMAS score, Open Court, CKLA, and Wonders. And while all of these resources are comprehensive core resources, they're on the CDE approved list for high quality instructional materials, we are starting to see a difference in how our students are performing if you're looking at it just through a resource lens. And I have to say, it's not always just about the resource, but we do have some questions about what we're seeing, particularly with our schools using EL. As you can see in that gray number, at every grade level, not just third grade, but K, 1, 2 as well, it is consistently the lowest, our students are performing the lowest consistently at each of those grade levels through our MAP assessments and other assessments from the schools that are using that resource. So we started some conversations with the leaders there, just asking about implementation. What does that look like? How can we support you? You know, kind of trying to get to the root cause of this and see if we can change that trajectory. And again, it's an ongoing conversation. And if we can't seem to get student outcomes moving with that resource, then we'll have conversations about what resources may be able to be provided to improve that there. So that's another challenge, is just really trying to understand program effectiveness. It's not always about the resource, again, but it is something that we're looking closely at the same time wanting to support our schools to get there. And then finally, I would say this idea around academic freedom and resource coherence has been an ongoing challenge. And again, this is, I think, part of change management. When you think about it, I don't think, well, I've been in Jeffco for 9 years, and I've not heard anyone talk about, even prior to that we've ever had like core resources, purchase resources and programs that have been consistently used in Jeffco. And so our teachers have spent many years planning their units and bringing their materials together, and they've used those over time, and they've invested a lot of time and energy. And it's not to say that work isn't quality, but the way that work has occurred across our system has been very inconsistent and very much in silos. So you might have you do have school teams at the buildings working to build out their own materials, and they're using those over and over again. And then when someone leaves or retires, you've got a new person that might come in. And we've heard this. We've actually lost new educators in Jeffco because they come here and they're like, wait, there's no resources? What am I supposed to use to teach? But their colleagues have those, and they'll share things with them. And then so there's that piece that we have concerns around. And then when the units are built out at the individual classroom and school level, we don't have articulation across classrooms, across system, across schools and levels. So you may have a great experience here at one school or one class, but you may not have that in another 6th grade class in another building, or even in the same building, because the teachers haven't really had a chance to come together and do a vertical progression and planning and a scope and sequence that makes sense, so that every year the learning is building in rigor from the year before. So there are people with PhDs that get paid to do that type of work. Excuse me. Our teachers should not have to be curriculum developers. It takes a lot of time. We would rather have them focusing on the students in front of them, meeting their needs, and having someone that's put that stuff together for them so they can take it and make it come alive for kids. And so I know there's been concerns around feeling like some things have been forced upon teachers as, purchase programs or scripted curriculums. There's been a narrative about that. I believe that's a result of lack of coherent and effective communication. So we are working on doing that better, making sense of the why. It's not because we don't feel like our teachers are doing a good job or are preparing quality materials. It's just very inconsistent. So we have a lot of variability in our student experiences. And what we've seen from our TNTP report and other walkthroughs, we do not consistently have grade level material or instruction happening in our classrooms. That's just not okay. We're creating gaps for our students because of that lack of vertical articulation in the learning progressions. And so while I understand that it feels like a loss when you've invested a lot of time and energy in creating materials for a teacher, at the same time, if we don't start to address some of the challenges that are occurring for our kids, we're not going to be able to change student outcomes as a system. That coherence and that vertical progression of learning that increases over time, that's connected to the year before, if we can't get that consistent through the consistent use of resources, our kids are going to continue to struggle and have gaps in their learning and not get to grade level expectations. So it's a balance. It's a making sense conversation. It's working collaboratively side by side with our teachers to help them understand the why behind that, and we're working to do a better job. I believe truly that every teacher that gets these resources or has a conversation with us comes out of that with a deeper understanding. So I think that's the path forward, is meeting with our teachers and really understanding where are they at, what do they need, how do we do this together, because we both have the same goals. We really want to improve our student outcomes. I believe every teacher wants that. So that's kind of all I have prepared for you. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about what I've shared and ask questions.
Thank you. And the benefit of being virtual here is everyone can raise their hand, and we even have the order there. So what I'm going to do from this point on is I'll let number 1 take over, and when you're done, we'll go from there.
Okay, so when we talk about change management, and I'm thinking from my point of view, specifically high school, and I think our last experience in the district, we had the curriculum developers come in and
excuse me, Director Reed, I'm having trouble hearing you. Is anybody else having trouble?
I can't hear.
Oh, it says my mic is on. Can't hear anything?
No, it was just garbled. Just stay closer maybe to the microphone.
Okay, is this better?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the secondary ELA specifically through the lens of having been through the last time the district was going to change the high school curriculum. And I think there was an automatic assumption that change management was the only issue. And I think that change management is an issue. I do know that especially high school teachers are very possessive of their of what they've been doing. But I think there were some mistakes made. So I'm hoping we're not going to make those same mistakes. Will we still be teaching high school students entire novels? I can't hear you. Your mic is off.
I can turn mine on.
Did everybody else get that hardcore echo?
Yes, we did. I think they're trying to figure it out in the conference room.
Okay. I'm going to leave my hand up because I'll have a few more things to add.
Hi there. Can you hear me now? Okay. So the question was around novels. So yes, we have a very novel-centric approach to teaching for ELA. Nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, all of the resources right now that we're piloting have a novel component, and that was with intent because we know that our teachers really enjoy teaching novels. So we're not going to completely move away from that. However, it won't be the only approach. Right now, one of the resources we're piloting is called Study Sync. And the way this program is laid out, that you need to work through the first 4 modules within it during the school year before you begin to enter into teaching novels. So we have ordered 2 novels that those teachers can use as part of their units of study this year, but they won't get to that in the sequence of learning until later in the year. So we're looking to have a balance of both. I mean, it's about maximizing instructional time as well. And sometimes novel studies can take 6, 8, 10 weeks. And so we want to make sure that we're really being very efficient with the time that we have with our students too. So seeking that balance there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I just, the last time we did it, they were virtually eliminated.
I'm sorry, Director Reed, I can't hear you.
Oh, golly.
My sound.
Oh.
No, at the top. There you go.
Is that working?
Yep, I got you.
Okay, so yeah, the last time we went through this, they virtually eliminated them, and I think sometimes we lose. Like, obviously, we want data and we want kids to be doing well and all those measurable things, but literature, especially when you get into high school, is about being a human being and understanding the human experience and your place in it, and that does not test well, but it is a vital piece of an English curriculum. So I don't want to lose that. And I'm hoping too that it takes into account, like, I think that you need a decent amount of nonfiction in there. But they do read nonfiction in other areas. And so, you know, I think we need to remember that that is true, that when they are in science class and they're in social studies class and all of that, they are getting nonfiction reading, because that was kind of like, when we changed it before, it was like, oh, they need to do all this nonfiction. And we're going, well, they read nonfiction in all kinds of other places. I'm also hoping that they will still be doing a decent amount of analytical writing, because that also was eliminated in the last round. And analytical writing is really important. So I'm hoping that that is also included in that curriculum.
Yes, they all have a writing component, and we're currently evaluating how robust those are. And we'll be kind of moving into that territory a little bit down the road. But yeah, nothing around writing is being pulled out or changed at this moment. Yeah. And right now, I really see this as we're looking at, hopefully over the next few years, entering into this space around, especially ELA at our middle levels. Right now, like I said, I think 14 out of our 25 potential classrooms or schools that have middle level classes have currently been piloting. We have 6th grade, we have some that are doing 6th, 7th, and 8th, some 6th and 7th. So we really hope to build out 6th, 7th, and 8th grade over the next few years. But of course, we want to do this in partnership with our teachers. And so we're actively reaching out, offering to set up peer observations, go and visit someone who's piloting a resource if you're curious, setting up these panels, meeting with teachers and capturing video, sending people out to support as needed to make it a great experience. And so every teacher is going to ask to have it. That's our hope.
I think I'm next.
Yes.
Yes. Take my hand down. So I just wanted to recognize that as the parent of a preschooler, we are seeing this being rolled out kind of in real time, right? And it's really cool to see, you know, all the materials you brought us last year. I've been kind of like waiting to see them roll out in the classroom. And sure enough, like we did a study on spheres and balls and like different shapes and sizes. And Evelyn came home talking about small, medium, and large and different bouncing. And, you know, then they did a session on trees and it talked about like all the things. So it's cool to see it at that level come in, such a difference from last year's preschool. Because we have the luxury of being able to see last year to this year. So I just want to lift up, and I ask the teachers when I go in how they're liking it, and they seem to be liking that there's some structure for them to follow. So I'm really personally excited to see the science roll out and see how that goes, because I think especially, you know, when we think about, do children feel challenged and are they enjoying the content? You know, science for me was always fun. I know I'm not normal. But the science classes for me were the ones that like kept me engaged in school. I wish I had Paula's passion for ELA, but that was not my strong suit. And so, you know, I'm excited to see it kind of rolling out to the rest of the pieces. So well done. It's nice to see it. We are seeing it as parents.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see this continue.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. You know, like I said, it's in the beginning, it's a lift and you're learning something new. And some days it's a little frustrating. It can be, but I think on the back end of that, you start to be able to bring your art to it and get really comfortable with the resource. And it should save get teachers their weekends back. It save a lot of time for them in the long run. So thanks.
I have a couple of questions on the slide that compares the different curricula and the scoring. Does that include charter schools?
I'm not sure for that. I don't think so. No.
Okay. And when it had a column that said non-HMH, does that include the other ones that like the CKLA and Open Court and whatever?
Yes. Yes. It kind of grouped all four together. Yeah.
Okay. And what is Open Court?
Open Court is used at Denison. It's been around for a really long time. I used it as a teacher and had it as a principal. It's a pretty traditional program, very strong in foundational skills instruction. Like I said, Denison's using it, Parmalee's using it. We've got a handful of schools that are using it. It's a good program. Yep, it's a good program.
And it does seem to me that now that we've got some control or some limit to the number, the variety of resources that we're using, we can highlight which ones are doing well, and then we can also identify additional resources and supplemental materials that we could use for the other curricula. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. That's what we're looking at. I mean, they all are approved resources. So we're really trying right now to figure out, is it about the implementation? Has it not been implemented well? And just try to understand why we have that data point, because it's pretty consistent in our system. EL is also a very expensive program. It's about double the cost. And so if we're going to invest in it, we want to make sure we're getting the outcomes. So right now we're just really investigating and trying to understand better.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Varda.
I just kind of had a follow-up on that challenges slide with the comparisons. Since we don't really see much of a difference, and it doesn't look like a statistical difference in the outcomes, the average scores. do we still believe that like the curriculum that we've picked is better than others? I mean, it's a little bit of a continuation of that, like, or I can see the efficiencies for having a resource that everyone uses. I love that. I think that's really great. But can we say much about that it's, you know, any different than using any other?
It is, and you know, the one thing on this slide, you see our average CMAS scores, but when you look at our DIBELS scores for kindergarten, first, second, by resource, HMH consistently is, our students are performing at the top. The schools that are using HMH on that assessment as well. And again, EL is at the bottom, fifth out of the 5 on DIBELS as well. So we are seeing indications that our students our schools using HMH, the students are performing better.
Renee, we're also looking at the difference in the predicted performance of the student versus how they're performing. And there's a big difference for our EL kids.
I'm not sure if you heard that, but Dr. Kim here was saying that we're also looking at the predicted performance for those students using the different resources. And there's also, based on body of evidence over time, the predictions for how students will perform if they're using HMH versus EL is very different. The projected performance for EL is lower there as well.
Meeting their projected performance.
They're not meeting their projected performance.
Okay, board members, are there any other questions on this monitoring report? No, I'm really excited, I'll just say, to be able to see some real data, you know, especially the cohorts for the HMH. I think we're all excited to see how that goes. So thank you so much for the presentation. And I guess if you're ready to go on to the next one.
I also wanted to encourage you, you do have a list of the schools that are piloting both the TWIG science. Right now, half of our 6th grades or so. We're looking to expand that to 6th and 7th next year for TWIG science. I really encourage you to go and visit one of your schools that are using this. I've heard great things. We had a Magic of Middle School steering committee meeting recently, and one of the principals at the pilot school brought pictures and great stories of a recent science lesson there with TWIG. That he was sharing about how this really is magical when students are engaged in an inquiry-based model and using these new resources with experiments. And he was just kind of over the moon about it with the steering committee. So please do check out those schools as well as for the ELA. Please talk to the teachers there. I was so happy to hear their testimonials about the experience they're having. So I would really encourage you to seek those out and check in with them too. Did you have something?
I know I was going to switch the screen for you
Okay.
when you're ready.
All right. So go ahead and transition then and talk about professional learning. I like it better than this.
Yeah, it's easier. And so I just want to share, can you hear me? I do want to share with the board that I will be stepping out of the meeting at 11:30. I have another meeting, and that's pretty important, and I just want to make sure you know that that's why I'm leaving.
Sharing your screen.
And you are in great hands with Dr. Kim and Chief Academic Officer Nick Athodes. And so, but I want to make sure you and our listening public know why I'm leaving. It's to go to another meeting.
Maybe I'll just follow. I also have to leave at 11:30.
Okay.
I'm trying to be efficient. I think I'm settling in now with this technology and everything. Okay, so here to report out now on Board Ends 2.1, and that is that educators will receive high quality professional development and engage in planning that directly improves their impact on their students. And we interpret that in Jeffco to mean that Jeffco administrators, educators, and staff will receive high quality professional learning and engage in planning that impacts our student outcomes. So overall, we know that the research supports that when you have high quality professional learning along with instructional materials and those practices, you do see improved student outcomes. So we've been working really hard to align our system around a consistent model for professional learning aligned to the arc of learning that I was able to share with you in the earlier presentation. Our professional learning department is fairly new. It's about 2 years old, I think now, and they support a range of professional learning needs across our system. They support our new teachers and our new administrators through the induction program. They provide administrator professional learning through executive leadership meetings each month, as well as assistant principal meetings and professional learning for that group, and support across our system for different administrators in different roles. They also support our licensed staff professional learning. I'll talk about some challenges with that as we go through this presentation, but our teachers are very well supported by our central teams, including teaching and learning division overall. And they also support, is it better? Okay. Thanks, June. They also support teams at the schools, especially PLCs, working through their protocols and processes. They sit side by side with them, help them debrief on their PLCs and the quality of those, as well as support them through instructional planning. And then they also support our JESPA employees and have worked closely with the professional learning committee within JESPA to plan for effective professional learning for our JESPA folks. We've had very favorable feedback overall, improved from last year even, about the professional learning opportunities for all of our administrators, our coaches through induction, PLCs, and with our teachers and educational support professionals. One of the bright spots, something I'm very proud of, is my executive assistant, Heidi Williams, has part of her professional goals this year has been to focus on building out professional learning for our executive assistants here at Centrally. And she's been working with our professional learning team to build her capacity to lead sessions to teach our techs and executive assistants things like Excel for administrative assistants and different things like that. So she's been so excited to be able to take a risk, grow her own skills, and support her colleagues here centrally to build their skill sets through the support of our professional learning team. Some other bright spots that's been supported through professional learning is our values-based leadership development series and our professional learning pathways that we've been building out, which will launch officially over the summer this next year. Here's a little data to share with you. This was from the TLCC survey that's taken across the state of Colorado for all educators. And these are data points specifically around questions related to professional development. And we saw a nice improvement across most of the items and really exceeding the state results around professional learning with these questions in Jeffco. So happy to see some gains there. And overall that our people are feeling well supported with professional learning. Always room to grow, but great to see. Again here, improvement and exceeding just slightly state results. It's been interesting too, with the TLCC survey, we're able to see how educators across the state responded in their districts. And we were looking recently at some of our comparison districts here in the metro area. And I reached out because I had seen in one school district that their teachers' perception of time and the time that they had for their professional learning and planning, things like that, was much stronger, was greater than ours. They were getting greater reviews from their teachers. And so I wanted to learn more about that and reached out to the CAO over there and said, hey, what are you guys doing to support your teachers with time? Because that's consistently a lower area for us here in Jeffco. And as I spoke with him, he shared with me they're not really doing anything all that different. Their teachers don't have markedly more time. They've just been able to really narrow their focus in on what the teachers are doing when they do have the time. And I think that's something that we're already leaning into as well, as far as saying, we want to focus on these things and these things only, and not continue to add to our educators' plates. And so we'll continue to collect feedback around that, and hopefully we can start to see some improved results there as well. It doesn't seem to be about creating more time, because that's not possible, but helping people with the quality of the time that they do have. Again, a little more data. You can see exceeding the state results on those questions as well. So on track overall, we have our professional learning in place, and it's very aligned to our instructional excellence initiative. All of our central teams and departments are aligned around that arc of learning. And so anything that's deployed out into the field with our teachers is very much aligned on the same kind of topics. We've developed paraprofessional competencies for our paraprofessionals within JESPA, aligned to our district values. And so we're building out professional learning for them, aligned to developing those competencies. And that was done in collaboration with our JESPA Professional Learning Committee. And we've also been heavily focused on building the instructional leadership capacity of our administrators through the arc of learning and executive leadership meetings this year, and we're receiving pretty positive feedback around the value of that as well. Again, the challenges, time, we're not able to really create a whole lot more time, but we are trying to think about the needs within our system. How do we continue to narrow our focus while also providing things that are valued by our employees? And then we've also set up a professional learning monitoring tool to help us with coordinating, communicating, and aligning our professional learning on an online system, and that is Vector. And it has definitely helped us as a learning catalog, but it's also had its challenges. And we believe as we move through this ERP, RFP process, that we'll end up with a better tool in the future. But so it's a love-hate relationship with our online system for managing professional learning right now, but we're sticking with it for the time being. As far as time goes to meet a variety of the needs within our system, one of the biggest challenges that I want to lift up is our access to our direct access to our teachers. You know, we do have 14 non-student contact days on the calendar this year, and that is more than several of our surrounding school districts. That's a nice amount of time for our educators to have for professional learning and planning. There's about 1 day each month. But the way that we prioritize that time for our schools is we allow our administrators to have their school-based professional learning and time with their staff in the mornings of those days. And in the afternoon, per contract, teachers are guaranteed the rest of the day for their individual plan time. And so we do offer every non-student contact day during those afternoons. We offer optional role-based professional learning for our teachers and educators, but we know that we aren't competing with their individual plan time. And so participation is, it's not what we'd like it to be right now, but we understand the why behind that. One of the things we've done this year is try to come out. We've built out a year-long plan, and we've tried to communicate what's happening on these days ahead of time. So should people want to shift their schedule and make time for something they're really interested in, they can do that because we've been able to communicate a year-long plan of topics that'll be provided and when they'll be provided. That's been one of our strategies. But it is an ongoing challenge to have direct access to our teachers if they don't choose to attend any of those optional opportunities. Another strategy that we've come up with has been to create these turnkey decks for our administrators and our instructional coaches during our executive leadership meetings. They have professional learning around our instructional excellence arc. And then they get what we call a turnkey slide deck with materials that that's based on what they just learned, but it's a synthesized version that they can take back and then use it to do professional learning with their staff. So we've been able to provide materials that way. And the idea behind that is just to really create a more consistent kind of cascade of this learning throughout our system to build capacity at scale. So that's another strategy that we're using to try to provide support for our teachers directly. But again, it is an ongoing challenge. Okay, I think that's all I have prepared for you with the slides. And what questions do you have?
Thank you. And while the others decide if they have questions or not, I have just a couple of them. How else do you get feedback other than the TLCC survey?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. We do a lot of surveys. So all of our teams that are working collect their own data that we look at pretty regularly. Again, we're also meeting with our instructional leader groups. We have one for every content area. We have them for art, music, and PE that we do virtually. So we have a lot of contact that way. We have our central academic leadership team that is made up of our TOSAs, which are teachers on special assignment, and they're out in the field working with teachers on a daily basis, and they bring back, we have feedback that they collect around the work that we're doing and what the needs are to that committee so that we can plan for offerings on the non-student contact days. And just recently, we put out on our district website for the professional learning page and on our teacher pathway page, feedback, a QR code, and asked people to please ask our teachers and our educators, please tell us what we're not offering that you might want. And so we've got gotten a great response to that and on spreadsheets. So we've had about 150 people respond to those QR codes right now. So we've got some great data. If I was on my computer, I'd pull it up so you could see the spreadsheet. But, you know, teachers, they're great. They're giving us feedback on things that they would like more learning around. So it's been really nice to see that. And we're trending it and putting it into buckets so we can provide professional learning around the future. Oh, and
Great.
Panorama as well. Yes. The Panorama survey is another big data source for us to understand the needs of our teachers and how
Great.
they're feeling about it.
And just two additional questions. One is about the non-contact days. Is that, because that's something that the community, the parents are also interested in. Are we having so many non-contact days now in a large part because of our new curricula and what we're doing? I guess what I'm asking is, do you see us going back having fewer non-contact days in the future, or is this kind of where we're going to be going forward?
This is where we're going to be going forward. It is part of our negotiated agreement at this point. It was negotiated last year, I believe. And you'll see in November when I bring you the next 3-year calendar for approval, that we do have 14 non-student contact days planned for those 3-year calendars as well.
There's other districts on that.
Yes, it's slightly more, but other districts around us have
by a day or two.
Yeah, by a day or two. They're all within the 11, 12, 13 kind of day range.
Well, we're
Okay.
also trying to be very sensitive to the fact that our teachers are telling us that they need to have quality time, that they can plan and be thoughtful about the needs of kids in order to do their best work. And in order to do that, we've got to provide them that time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not anything new. Our teachers have always need time. You know, over the years since I've been in Jeffco, we've talked about late starts and how do we figure out this or that to provide more time for our teachers. So it's an ongoing need for our teachers.
The other thing I might add on this, and we can talk more about this when Renee brings the new 3-year calendar. We have tried to front load some of the teacher work days at the beginning of the year before school starts, in an effort to respond to some of the parent feedback. So I know it's interruptive to family schedules. We get that. We also know that our teachers are using the time productively, and it helps the lessons and the teaching and learning in the classrooms be stronger. But we did put some of the days at the beginning of the year before students start, so it's less of an impact to our families. The other piece I'll mention is that we are tracking teacher attendance on these days to make sure that, I know sometimes teachers need to take a day to go to the doctors or get things done that they have specific needs around, and we understand that. But we do want to make sure that we're being accountable as a system, that when we use when we have these days, we are using them to develop our, for our staff to develop professionally.
Yeah, and everything that occurs on those days, we have feedback forms that teachers fill out, so we're able to track participation and the quality of the experiences as well. It's a need, and it's the next 3-year calendar cycle comes up. You'll see out of the 14 days, 6 of them are in August, the week prior to students returning.
Awesome. And then my final question has to do with the training, especially the JESPA oriented training. I know that there's lots of interest in training anybody who is dealing with our special ed kids, making sure that they understand the IEPs, that what it means to follow one, and also trauma informed type of training. How much have we been doing that?
Sure.
I'll share that we heard that feedback, and Matt Palero's team from Student Success leaned in this year, especially at the beginning of the year, and offered 2 full days of training for any staff that were a part of a center-based learning school, and provided that training. And in fact, the first day they had quite a few people there, but the feedback was so positive that they ended up with this big increase in people in the second day because people felt like it was so helpful. And so after that, they offered another day following that because of the demand and what they heard in terms of A, the effectiveness, and B, people's felt like they really needed that support. And they're going to continue to do that. The assistant director team took feedback from folks who participated in that and said they will continue to make that a part of their practice because it was so well received.
Great, thank you. Director Applegate.
Thank you. I just have 2 quick questions. When we, Ms. Nicothodes, did I see right that when we do our ERP, there would be part of that ERP may be an actual new kind of module to manage this. Okay,
Yes.
that's great. I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure we were going fast and I saw that and I just
Oh,
wanted to
I'm
make sure I
sorry.
understood
Yes.
that.
Yes, we are very
Yeah, no,
hopeful
that's
that,
great.
yeah, it'll be much more of a seamless, platform.
And then when we are talking about how to drive teachers to maybe use the second half of their days to participate in some of this, are we working with JCEA at all? I mean, we mentioned JESPA, but are we working with our bargaining groups to drive this? And I don't want to say sell it or encourage
Yeah.
it, but like, what's that discussion like?
They're very aware of it. We've made them aware of all the topics. I mean, we could probably do more and reach out and specifically say, help us generate interest in this, and I'm sure they would. But we meet with them, we review the offerings, we get their feedback on the things that we're offering.
We also go
Yeah, I
through
think
the annual feedback, both in Panorama and TLCC survey data in our monthly meetings with JCEA to say, is this telling the whole story? Is there anything more you need us to know? And we've had dialogues back and forth. Is there anything you're not getting that you need? And so we're pretty transparent with the data to have the conversation and say, if there's something that you need that we're not providing, please tell us.
Great. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments from the board? I just want to say that I really appreciate these regular updates. The monitoring reports, I think, are so helpful. And I appreciate all the detail that goes into the actual report. So anybody who, thinks that the presentation doesn't have something that they're interested in, they can go to the report and they'll definitely get that information. So thank you so much for being here with us today. I do believe that does bring us to the end of today's agenda. So unless there's last chance for comments or questions, nope. Then we will stand adjourned. Our next regularly scheduled meeting of the board is a study session at 4:30 p.m. on November 6th. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.